Hi, I'm Dr. Laura.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is We Changed Our Minds podcast.
And I think it's helpful before we get started, just as a friendly reminder, that the materials and contents of this podcast are presented for educational and informational purposes only. So the materials and contents are not medical, psychological, legal, or other professional advice, and they're not intended to be substituted for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So if you have any specific questions about your health or healthcare decisions, please seek the advice of a licensed healthcare professional.
I have a general fascination with the bizarre. You know, there are things in this world that are really weird. What happened was that everybody got a glimpse of something. You know, I can't say what it is. I don't know what it is. I know, to me, it was like, might have been something like limitless possibilities. You know what I mean? Something like that, maybe. You know, but I mean, the thing was that in the meantime, in my life, what had happened to me just a little before that was that I had you know, some incredible psychedelic experiences that were so cosmic, they were so huge in scope, you know what I mean, that I knew that I knew that all of a sudden I had to revise everything that I thought I knew about anything, you know. I had to, you know, I said, this stuff is coming from somewhere. If it's not out there, it's coming from me. It's coming from my mind, my brain. That means my brain has an infinite amount of capacity in there that I had no sense of. I didn't know anything about it. But there it was, and I've seen it, you know. I not only saw it, but I walked around in it. I had a million incarnations in it. I lived and died in it, you know what I mean? I had experiences beyond anything I've ever experienced, more real than anything I ever experienced in this world, you know. And I mean, I was packing that knowledge around with me, you know what I mean? So the thing of this door opening was like, it was one of those things that we were all inducing it as well as perceiving it, you know what I mean? It was, I mean, it's hard to say. You know, I think it was probably everybody saw what they wanted to see or what they needed to see or whatever it was. You know, they'd all been brought there somehow for that moment, you know, for that moment. And you can't even say what it was or when it was or what it boiled down to or anything like that. It wasn't even like that. It was just something, you know.
Hey now, we changed our minds, audience. This is Matthew coming at you from late February 2024. I am pleased to present to you episode 2 of season 2 of the We Changed Our Minds podcast. In this episode, I'm playing for you an archive of a recording from, you could call it an addiction roundtable discussion that Dr. Laura and myself had down in Haight Ashbury, San Francisco, with a dear friend of mine of almost two decades now, and one of our esteemed past guests, bandmate, friend, elder, mentor, Tsvi Strauch. Dr. Laura and I spent the afternoon sitting around and exploring with Tsvi his experience with kind of the first-hand challenges and struggles and insights that he gleaned from his own multi-decade addiction to intravenous cocaine and his eventual recovery. And in this discussion, we particularly focused on some of the unique challenges and obstacles to recovery that can be presented by users who are more, you could say, intellectually inclined. Those who turn to drugs and turn to hard substances and habitual use to cope with life and functionality in their own ways, but who have a uniquely intelligent ability to rationalize and frame their use in such a way that often can enable them to be functional, covert, and fairly successful users, much longer than others who are unable to kind of present such perceptual coping mechanisms. And Tsvi really took his time to share with us some of the key insights and lessons he learned in his own journey. And we hope you find it useful. We hope some of this content and some of what he shares is helpful to some people out there who may be facing the same struggles or maybe haven't had the opportunity to see the ways in which their mind was rationalizing something that by all measures is destructive in their life. So I hope you find it as entertaining as we did. It's wise, it's hilarious, it's insightful, and it's speckled with some rich first-hand countercultural oral history. So I hope you enjoy as much as we did. On this episode, our featured artist is one of Tsvi's many bands and side projects out of the San Francisco Bay Area. The band is Inner Journey to Outer Space, and they have a new album on the way. Look for that dropping soon. I'm going to be playing selections from the album As Before, So Beyond. Tsvi is a keyboardist. He's a man of many keys, synthesizers, Moogs, a whole array of far out sounds. And he has been one of the great music teachers of my life. So, Brother Tsvi, otherwise known as the Oracle of We Changed Our Minds, here's to you, brother. Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. See you all back here in a week or two, where I'm going to sit down with Grateful Dead publicist Dennis McNally and get his views and perspectives and experiences on various issues around substance use and the counterculture, and specifically in the inner circles of the Grateful Dead. I hope you join us. So for now, get comfortable, turn on, and come. Change your minds with us.
He and I have been discussing a few things. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychoanalyst or a medical professional in relation to addiction, but I have had an enjoyable 30-year ride with cocaine. So I know a little bit about it. And one of the things I was telling Matthew recently is that some of the characteristics of addicts are as follows. And I think you need to separate. When professionals talk about addiction, they never make the separation between the average person who happened to try heroin and then after 6 months was addicted and didn't know what to do or how to do it or what, and finally got into a program and was able to evolve and change. Because the intellectual has many ways of characterizing what it is he's doing. He's not an addict, he's examining his mental capacities. Freud did cocaine every day until he died. I'm not addicted. I go into the library looking like a sheep and I come out roar like a lion. Well, that's bullshit. That's made up shit. At one point, my connection said to me, look, you're buying all this coke and you're doing coke every day. I'm doing coke every day. Let's quit. Let's quit together. I'll call you up every day. And I was like about 45. I'm going to do this every day till I die. So I was not only bullshitting, I was lying, and I was lying to myself. So one of the characteristics of the intellectual addict is lying. Okay, so you have to address that fact. I was lying to myself. I was stealing from myself. I was stealing from my wife. I was pretending to be helping her because she had grabbed all the coke and now she was selling and I had to just hang out and answer the door and hand people stuff, so I was taking stuff out of it. It gets to a point where you become a piece of shit because you are a piece of shit because you're lying to yourself. And you're lying to yourself because you're so fucking intelligent, you figured out how to do it. You were taking vitamins, you were exercising, you were doing yoga, so you could shoot up all day long.
But would you say lying is a quality of addicts in general, not just intellectual
addicts?
You don't think average type folks have
they
to
don't
have a
even know
degree
what
of
they're doing.
deception?
They don't have that meta perception of, I like this. Ooh, I like it a lot. But it costs a lot of money. Where am I going to get the money? Okay, well, my kids don't need an extra TV. I'll just fucking shoot up my arm.
It's not that conscious for that.
It's not. They're not conscious about what it is they're doing. The conscious addict creates all of these brilliant coping mechanisms to justify the fact that they're doing stupid, dumb shit. It's one thing to be doing acid every day or 10 times a week. It's another thing when you're doing stupid drugs 30 times a day like cocaine, because all you do is you're doing stupid. You're not enlarging your brain. You're not enlarging your mental capacity. You're not, I'm going to do it and play some music. Oh shit, I need to do some more. Okay, when are we going to play music? Well, let's go get some more cocaine.
Do you think like there's this temptation, I think, like if you are the intellectual addict, it's not just rationalizing, but you have stuff to lose. Like you have family, you have friends, you have a full life, you have a lot of things you know and understand, I think like sometimes it's kind of like you don't want to lose the things you have too. So it's just kind of like making excuses or avoiding kind of the inevitable in a lot of ways too.
As opposed to different behaviors, you intellectualize the behaviors.
Yeah, rationalize it. I know I've heard so many people say things like, oh, I never felt right as a kid. Now this just makes me feel right. This is just balancing me out,
Oh, yeah, but that's the early stages. And I think with meth and coke, it does make you feel that because there's a certain feeling of euphoria. Now, I did heroin 3 times, and each time it was just a terrible, stupid mess. And I didn't want to get to the point where, oh, now it's good, you know, with cigarettes you get sick and then you smoke it, oh, now I can smoke. But I did find this out. Recently I was telling him there was an article on the Google feed where Steven Tyler, the singer for Aerosmith, said, when I saw Kurt Cobain and he was so fucked up, I said, hey man, you gotta quit this. And you know what he told me? He said, shooting up heroin is 1,000 times better than sex. So this is how I analyze that whole little conversation. The person who said that never had any good sex to begin with, because it's not true. Shooting up is a form of sexual pleasure, but it's not as good as sex, period. Because I did both, and I know. I did freebase, I shot up cocaine, I did speedball, morphine, and cocaine, and that was hot. But I still would rather be fucking someone than shooting up drugs. So anybody that says that to you, you know, one, either they're lying and making up shit just to make you quit bugging me, you asshole. This is better than sex, stupid.
Exaggeration.
It's not exaggeration, it's lying.
Okay.
Right.
There's difference.
Yeah.
And also that person never knew what good sex was. That's another indication. The third point about that is, in order to have sex with another person, you have to put out and you have to put in.
Yeah.
To shoot up, you can just go to your bathroom and shoot up. You don't have to put out anything except a few dollars.
Right.
There is no putting out of your emotional person. So that's always available to you. In order to have sex with your wife, if she's going, no, not this tonight, you got to go, well, maybe got to work something out, and da-da-da.
Yeah.
But you have to put in and you got to put out. You don't have to put out anything to have drugs.
Do you think that's why people get in these like codependent relationships? Like sometimes you'll see relationships where the person's an addict and the other person's not, but they're always like the caretaker or like...
Yeah, because they think they're taking care of their father or something, or their mother, or their baby brother. Yeah.
Well, it's a certain kind of externalized piece of
gratification.
Both
sick. They're both sick. The addict and the person who gets codependent.
Well, the common theme is seeking inner peace in an external thing, whether that's drugs or a partner, right?
Right.
But it's something you can only solve internally, but you've externalized that process.
Right, and you don't. And if it's codependent, you're not getting anything, and you're having to put it all out, because the person on the other end, he's in his own little world. He's not putting anything out.
Right.
And once I figured that out, I realized this is just a solo act.
Yeah.
It's a total solo act. When you take acid, we used to take acid in a group up in the attic, be 10 of us, and we'd be laughing and playing music and having fun. That's a communal thing.
Right. And I was thinking so much, you're right about that. Like that solo thing in lying is a way of pushing people away. Right? It's a way of even becoming more solo.
Right.
Well, isolating, yeah.
Isolating, breaking trust. Like, eventually you'll find yourself alone, right?
So that's why I came to the conclusion that I've never been into rehab, and I've never been at a group meeting. I think an intellectual addict will not do well at a group meeting, because what people I've met who've been in these groups, it seems like they imitate each other and grab the story that they heard from the last person and repeat it, and so that none of them ever get better. Maybe one gets better, but
like 5%, I hear.
That's proves my
much.
point.
Yeah.
And especially with an intellectual, if they're going to get clean, they have to work with someone one-on-one.
Yeah.
And of course, I figured out everything. If I wanted to get clean, there was 3 ways. One is you run out of money.
Well, that'll work.
That's a good one, though. It worked because when you run out of money, you got to sit in bed for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. Another is taper. Did I ever taper? Never!
Yeah, you didn't even attempt it.
I knew about it. I wasn't tempted. And the other is take some acid, and then you go. So every time I took acid, I go, holy shit, what am I doing with this stupid needle? And 5 seconds later, I got to do it again. I take acid, I'm on for a whole fucking day.
So in that sense, psychedelics did not assist you in getting clean?
No, it didn't. But it showed me that I could get clean.
Okay. So it gave you a reference point for...
It gave me a reference point and gave me 12 hours of being clean.
Okay. You didn't Jones while you were on acid?
No.
Okay.
No. The acid completely put me back into the psychedelic space, and I'm going, what am I doing this other dumb shit for? Then I go to bed, and then the next morning I'm going, Jesus, I just had breakfast, I gotta shoot up.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
and I always make sure I'd have breakfast before I shoot up just so I wouldn't get fucked up. And I took my vitamins so I wouldn't stay healthy. And I did yoga so I could do some more shooting up.
How intellectual of you.
Oh my God. I mean, and I'm stealing from my wife. Stealing money, stealing coke, and pretending I'm not doing nothing.
Well,
so all of that is dumb shit.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is a common trend I've seen in the psychedelic community.
And you said you got a degree in bullshit. Let's hear it. Come on.
Something I've noticed is in the psychedelic community,
yeah,
there's a large percentage of people who turned on who eventually got into hard drug habits. So
how does that happen?
Yeah, for yourself. So you had already turned on. You had already discovered.
No, it had nothing to do with the acid.
But I'm saying you had already of that mind state. So how did you justify and make those choices having already been turned on? And why do people often do that?
Because when you first are introduced to shooting up cocaine or speed, so the guitarist in my band,
Beatnik Speed Freak,
was from Texas, and he came here in '61, and he was a neo-beat living in North Beach. Speed, and he started shooting speed, and he started making speed, and then he went to jail. So when he got out, I met him in '66, and he was making water pipes for our store. Okay. This was before Haight Ashbury. This is when I had my store up on Pacific Heights on the Visadero.
Nice.
So one afternoon he comes in and I said, oh man, I've been up all night, I'm really tired. He says, come on over to my house. I told my wife, I'll be back in a while. Go over to his house. He shoots me up with Dizoxin. I go, holy shit, this is fantastic. I had about a 5-minute rush.
Right.
And he said, yeah, when we were having the discussions at the prison, they said, how did you get into speed? And I said, well, when you read in the books, it says one of the side effects of amphetamines is euphoria. That's why I went for it. Okay. I said, can we do it again? So 5 minutes later, he shoots me up again.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was I'm up all night. But anyway, that was the introduction to that.
Right.
And then every then he was living here at the house in the basement, and we were playing music and shit. So maybe every 2 or 3 months, I would get enough for one dose, and I would shoot up that one time.
Yeah.
Just for the experience, not for the
Necessity.
after high, but
Right.
for the high, for the what the beats were calling the flash and so on. And then I told him, so then then all of a sudden cocaine appeared like in about 68 or 69. And we weren't snorting it, I just started shooting it, and I'm going, wow, this is super hot.
Wow, yeah.
And then with cocaine, you can shoot it up every 10 minutes.
Jesus.
Because the high lasts, there's a 30 to 60 second, this intense rush where you're just like this, and you're feeling, and it's all in your brain and your heart, and you're just listening to, there's a certain sound in your ear, and there's a certain metallic taste in your mouth, and the whole thing is, and then it's gone. 10 minutes later, you do it again. So you can do it 10, 20 times a day. I was doing it about 10 times a day. And this is when we had a store, and we had kids and dogs, and had to do this and make money, and da-da-da-da.
Wow.
I always had a bathroom in the...
Jesus.
Okay.
Were you aware of the addiction danger going into it when you first started using it? Or was that
Well,
not
I
well
read
known?
about this. I read Junkie by William Burroughs. I knew about that junkies were junkies.
You were willing to risk that, then?
Or you felt that it couldn't happen to you?
I thought I was in control.
Yeah, right. The intellectual.
Like I say, if you're an intellectual,
Yep.
you're not an addict till you're really at the end of the line.
Right, it's true.
Because you are Mr. Smartass.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
agree.
here's another little indication of how one can understand this. There's this poet named Jim Carroll. You heard of him? Okay. He started out in New York. He was a basketball player. And then he moved to Bolinas and he became a poet. So back in the 70s, he writes this poem. And he goes, you know, it's Tuesday morning and I just got out of the shower. And it used to be in New York, once a month, we would do this. He doesn't mention what this is. And then it was every other Saturday. And then it was every Saturday night. But now it's Tuesday morning and I just shot up some heroin. I'm addicted. See, the juxtaposition of once a month, that's not a junkie. Tuesday morning, shooting up heroin, that's a junkie. Just that image gives you what he's trying to give you, a poetic vision
Yeah, I hear it.
of when a person is addicted. If he's doing it once a month, or what they call heroin chic or whatever
Right.
it is,
Chipping.
chipping,
Yeah.
that's not,
Depends who you ask, though, because some would define that as addictive.
what, once a month?
Sure. Yeah.
That's not-
Regular
no,
heroin.
come on,
use.
that's not addictive.
I know
Because
what you're
once a
trying to
month
say.
could mean once every 6 months also. It doesn't mean every single month. It just he was just trying to
I
juxtapose
understand, yeah.
doing it once a month as opposed to all of a sudden taking a shower and doing it Tuesday morning.
Yeah, that's
Because
more-
who the hell shoots up heroin Tuesday morning?
An addict, clearly.
Yeah,
right.
not a stockbroker.
But that's an example of more intellectualized bullshitting yourself.
That's it.
Yeah.
Or a doctor who's addicted to morphine, who can have all the morphine he wants, and before he goes to work, can shoot up at home.
Yeah. I think, there is something that can happen sometimes. It's like, if you can have all the trappings of a successful life, like you had a store, a family, all the things around you. Oh, I saw him at yoga class. Oh, I see, you start to feel like, well, that's just a regular guy who has his shit together, right?
Yeah.
Versus, like, what might be happening internally, right?
Yeah.
All you see is the facade that they're projecting, and that's part of the lie, too, It's not just lying to yourself, it's just kind of a lie to the world. Like, here's the facade, I've got all my shit together. where everything's cool and fine. I'm
Yeah.
a big happy person,
Yeah.
you know. And then
Where's the
inside,
needle?
and then inside, like, it is true. It's not that you don't have happy
Yeah.
moments or all those things don't exist, but like, it's not like you're sharing the struggle.
Yeah, so
As
here's
easily.
another example of the addict lying. So Hunter Biden was taken to court
Yeah.
by this woman that he had a baby with, and he goes, I didn't have a baby with her. They do the paternity test. Yeah, it's Hunter Biden. Do you know what his answer was? It wasn't me, it was the cocaine. Shut the fuck up, you lying prick.
Cocaine got her pregnant, huh?
Yeah, the cocaine got her pregnant. I mean,
The XY
when I read that, I going, how could even the news writer even write this stupid shit? That's such a fucking lie.
So, like, a chance to not be accountable for, like, the dumb things you do, too. Like, you can kind of, like, go back and say, well, you know, I wasn't thinking, or I was wasted, or I was fucked up, or, you know.
Who gives a shit? It still was you. You're fucking sperm, asshole. Keep
That is
your
a good
sperm
point.
in your dick.
You know, that is a good point, because, like, honestly, sometimes I think, you know, people are just really easy to judge. They're like, oh, all drug addicts are, like, bad people, or liars, or stealers, or lame, you know, evil people with no heart and soul. But honestly, some of the most intelligent, truly deeply heartfelt people I've ever known are actually addicts. And they actually, their heart is almost like so wide open to the world. It's almost like a shell for them.
Touches on. I have like a theory. It's just a
Yeah.
theory about why hard drug addiction tends to be so common in people who are deeply psychedelic people first.
Yeah.
You probably noticed that. Like it's a trajectory that's common. So for those that it does happen to,
Yes.
I know I often ask myself, well, why is that? Because you would think that these people have that level of a certain, you know, an enhanced level of self-awareness that would keep them off of that path.
Right.
Exactly.
But that doesn't seem to be the case, and I've often asked why. And I do believe there is an element of when you open yourself up to that degree that psychedelics can, they blast you open and remove these filters. There's a heightened sensitivity to the world. There's a heightened empathy to the pain of others that I think may be stressful on a human ultimately. Like you blow away a lot of those filters that are protective ultimately, and so they have to then find something that kind of then shields them from the intensities coming at them in the world. You know, it has to they have to take a step to desensitize themselves after oversensitizing themselves with psychedelics.
I also wonder if it's just the kind of personality that's like a risk-taking personality,
Well,
right?
And a comfort with drugs,
like
obviously.
a comfort with risk-taking.
Yeah, and you know, already being in the drug world, it's.
And as an intellectual, you question, you wonder why, you can think outside the box. You kind of get a rebel vibe sometimes because you're like, you know what? Actually, let me ask why. Let me figure that out. And maybe there's that trajectory happens because it's kind of a risk-taker personality. It's kind of
a part of it,
intellectual rebel. And so they don't just stop at one risk. They just have to go a little bit further and a little bit further. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, where am I at?
Well, feel well served by some drugs, right? So you maybe assume that other drugs...
Look, I think there's two... You also have to analyze what is it that the opioid addiction is in relation to the amphetamine cocaine addiction, because the cocaine amphetamine addiction does not cover anything up. It makes you super aware,
Right.
Yeah.
but it also turns you super solo.
Right.
So that doesn't fit into your little analysis.
I should
of
say
having to-
opiates specifically then.
I think so, because you hear all this talk, oh, it feels like a soft pillow, or I don't have any worries, or and all this other dumb shit. Or a lot of people come to it from after surgeries and they're not knowing how. The doctor, like after I had my hip surgeries and so on, they gave me all the Norco I wanted and all the hydrocodone I wanted. But at one point I figured, okay, I'm going to start tapering. And I did taper off.
Okay, so
But then there was a certain amount of pain, so I switched to ibuprofen. And then I was on that for a long time. And then I began to realize I got to get off the ibuprofen. So that I tapered off of that too. But I think there's just way more to this than any of these programs offer or even understand.
I hear you.
And then you got these stupid bullshit programs like, you ever hear how Scientology analyzes this?
Yeah.
They go, if you smoke a lot of weed, it congregates in your liver, and then at some point you have this huge blowout and you go crazy. I mean, come on, what scientist ever invented that dumb shit?
Yeah, I think people are just always like trying to figure things out and look for answers and explain things, but like the truth is like I think if you look back to antiquity, humans are reckless, they don't have a lot of foresight, they're curious, and they like experiences that are like push them, you know?
Yeah, and pleasurable.
Right, exactly. And so you just throw that into the human mix, and you know, especially in our modern day, these things are diluted, concentrated, accessible, right? Like you don't have to forage in the forest one time a year, you know, and so it's kind of just like a free-for-all in a lot of ways.
I never had to wait 6 months for the opium to grow.
Right, exactly. So
I better save something for next year. Oh,
there's easier ways. Call China.
Call China.
Yeah.
Hello, China. You got any fake opium?
yeah, exactly.
Oh, we send you some fentanyl. You die.
Well, how would you define, in a contemporary sense, what's your definition of addiction that we'd be working with here?
I'm not a professional.
Well, but just can you?
I don't know.
Okay.
Addiction.
How would you?
Addiction means you're doing something all the time, like oxygen. You gotta have it all day. If you don't have it, you freak out.
Okay,
You don't have food, you freak out. You don't have. If you get that way with cocaine, that means you're addicted. If you're not, my wife was chipping just for occasionally, and then when she took over the business, one day she comes into the library and just grabbed the ounce off the scale and said, "No more, I'm taking it now." Okay.
Oh, jeez.
So then all of a sudden I start seeing these little empty bindles on the back of her bed, and I'm going, huh? And the next thing I know, and then I had my accident. I'm at the ranch for a year, and I finally come back down here. First thing she puts out on the table is not some weed, some coke. So she got addicted. Because she liked the money, and she began to like the high.
That's a big, tall order of a lady to mess with.
So
I hope you could keep up.
So then she's in charge of everything, and then
Wow.
we go to open this gallery. Finally decide we got to go back in business. So then we're waiting around, and she was kind of running out of coke. And then she goes, "Okay, that's it, no more."
No more coke for both of us.
That's right.
Okay. And that was it.
That's it.
Oh shit.
That's it.
What the lady says is what
Yeah.
goes.
Would you have not quit if it wasn't
When
for
she
that?
said the relationship was open, it was open.
Oh.
When she said it was closed, it was closed. Except for her.
Oh shit.
That motherfucker would fuck anybody she wanted, but I had to stay closed if she said it was closed.
Yeah.
And you agreed because you knew what was good for you.
Kind of.
What would you?
That's why Janis Joplin wouldn't go to bed with me one night when I drove her home all the way from Monterey. First she was on speed, so she didn't stop talking for 3 fucking hours. And then she realized, if I have to go down to this guy's store tomorrow and meet his Jewish wife, I better not be fucking him tonight. Good night, Tsvi. Go. Oh, shit, I could have fucked the rock star.
Oh, man. Did you and your wife hide your use of cocaine from each other initially? It sounds like it. Like you did it privately?
Well, in the beginning, I was. She wasn't into it. She was always into weed. She'd been smoking weed when she was 15, when she was in high school in L.A. She would play hooky from school, and she knew these black jazz musicians. Yeah. And they would go out to Venice Beach and play music and hang out at these coffee shops. The next day she would go to her mother, and her mother would always just sign it, and then she would write the note.
Yeah.
My wife would write the note.
She sounds interesting and ahead of her time. She sounds like way ahead of her time.
She had she was making jewelry and had a gallery and was having sex by the time she was 16.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys take acid together at the same time for the first time?
No, I took acid in 64 on a sugar cube, so it was Sandoz.
Were you already with her?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we were married and had kids, but
okay.
Some buddy of mine who had already done it did it with me the first time, and we used a friend's apartment, and we had the record player ready and the correct music ready.
Yes.
And when the first, I had my first acid trip that way, and I think she had her first acid trip separate also.
Okay. You went back and told her about it, and she kind of got her interested, and...
Well, she knew it was going to be her turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we had the band, the Amplified Ohm, which got started after the be-in, so we would meet up in the attic, and we'd all take acid and then play music, so it would be 8 or 9 of us.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was.
That's an understatement.
There was this professor of sociology from UC Davis that actually filmed us playing, and I have to call up that university and see if there's an archivist, because I can't remember his last name. I'm going to see if I can locate that film.
I'd love to see that, yeah.
And when I hear you, it just really sounds like, to me, like the difference between, you use the word communal and solo, right? Yeah. The difference of like sharing things and being open, right? Like when you're sharing, you're kind of open and exchanging, versus that isolation.
When you're shooting up, there's no sharing. It's you and the needle and the drug.
So like if I were to think, if I could like summarize it or like distill it down or try to get it down into one thought, it's a really complex thing, so you can't do that really. Yeah. But it just sounds like the difference between kind of like taking yourself away from life versus immersing yourself in life.
Yes, and I thought of another analogy. You can have sex and masturbate. You don't need anybody.
Right.
To have sex with another person, you have to put out and be there.
Yeah.
So so masturbation is a lot like shooting up. It's solo.
Right, and internal. Addictive.
Huh?
And addictive, like a weird kind of like addiction, right?
In a way,
like a weird kind of like, people
you
can
really
have
it whenever you want it.
Right.
You can still be an asshole and achieve it.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas to have a partner, you have to work on yourself. You have to be accountable and be grown.
Yeah, right. And your partner has to say, okay, you're acting stupid, shithead. We're not fucking tonight.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I can imagine programs don't work really well on that like level, because like they're trying to get groups of people together who are really isolated, kind of, they've taken themselves outside of like wanting to exchange, right, freely. And then you put them in a group and you're like, okay, here's the answer to your problems. Just come and do what you're escaping.
Well, encourage people to come out of isolation.
5% of the people that works with, but the 95% are just like, dude, they'll fake it, or
fake it. I think in the group a lot of people just. I've never been in a group, but it seems like people. From what I've heard, they're just sitting around. They hear what the other person's saying.
Well, they might be court mandated, or they might be doing it for their wife who's like, I'm going to leave you, or they might be doing it because their job says you need to do it. So, like, a lot of times I think another problem is like you just have to want it for yourself. I think really there might be programs, and it's not to say that programs don't have merit. It's just who's in the program. Somebody who really wants to be there and is ready to be there and can accept, on top of that kind of therapy. Like, all these things have to come together at once. And that looks about 5% of the time it works.
I see.
Right? That might be something.
Well, what's a good solution? I mean, what are some alternatives then? Because I think part of the reason we started this podcast was to start addressing the issue and finding new ways of people finding the kind of recovery they want to achieve. We've learned from the past, but how can we build on the past and create a new paradigm that increases that percentage?
Maybe take away judgment.
There might have to be several paradigms. But one thing is, we just all figured out there has to be honesty to your peers and to yourself, because remember, lying is a good part of being an addict.
It enables isolation.
Yeah, you have to quit the lying.
Okay.
And you have to quit the, I'm just doing it because I want it to be. See, in the beginning I would read about all these different poets, we just shot some and it was an explosion, or it was the Flash, and I'm going, I wonder what that's like. So it's curiosity too.
Right.
So once all that's gone, what's left is the addict, is the addiction.
Right.
So all of these things have to be addressed. I mean, there's just so many different facets to it. And like I say, there's us, the intellectuals, who can get addicted, and then there's the average person. They can't fathom what's going on. They don't know the difference between pleasure and being addicted, and having to put out and not having to put out, and relationships.
Sure.
They're now tied into a mechanical, chemical straitjacket, and they don't even know it.
Been hijacked.
Yeah. So I think there has to be these different levels of understanding.
Well, part of that for me is I've analyzed what feeds the lying. Like, why is this lying this component? What's behind the lying?
I think judgment.
Well,
And
shame. But
right?
is that socially? How much of that's socially driven because of these larger perceptions of it's a taboo to use these things, right? So they're ashamed to admit they're using this thing that's very looked down upon largely. That's got to be an element of it.
Yeah, they're lying because they want to keep doing it. You're being
that's
too,
a good point. Yeah, that's
you're being too sweet. They don't want to get shamed. I don't know. I'm just being.
Yeah, no. You're right.
Acting like an asshole.
Well, no, because
I just want to give you what an asshole would say. Okay.
But I think it's true. Like, there are there's so many different kinds of people, so many different kind of motivations, so many kind of ways that people, I come across these experiences, and so many different kinds of drugs they're addicted to. There needs to be as many approaches. Right?
Well,
like trying to find one little hole and then just slam square pegs into, it's gonna be a fruitless effort, because there's different, I don't know, I think at the end of it, sometimes I see trauma or pain as a commonality, right? Like it doesn't mean that every person's had the most horrific childhood or anything like that, but just whatever that means to you as an individual. A lot of times it's just a way to feel good and not pay attention to the stuff that sucks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you turn around and then you're doing the stuff that sucks.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Because addiction is set in.
And then the question is, do you realize that it sucks or not? Because some people don't know that they're addicted.
Yeah.
Or
they've got so
they
used
know
to it.
they're addicted, but they don't think it sucks. Whereas some people know they're addicted and they know it sucks, and they want to get out, but they're not gonna.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Those are solid points.
Right,
for
or
sure.
things that like are become tropes or become, archetypes, right? The artist or the musician that's
Right.
like, or I'm not like one of those yuppie scums. I'm a creative.
Yeah.
I'm unique.
Yeah, a lot of people follow that William Burroughs.
Right, or like Lou Reed.
I'm a successful writing junkie.
And it's,
Right.
It's essential to my creativity.
It's
Yeah.
it's part of my like whole facade, or like they almost like incorporate it as a part of like identity,
Yeah.
to where now it's not a problem, now it's something that makes them different and special, right? Like I've seen that as well, and I don't know, it's interesting.
I mean, is there any creative value to drug use? That's an interesting question.
Oh, well, yes, there is.
Okay.
But that's another. Drugs can be helpful in a creative way, but they also can become addictive. So, which line of thought do you want to pursue?
Okay, yeah.
And here's an interesting thing. So, Freud had a friend in the 1880s who was a ophthalmologist, and I think they had just created heroin for treating all the victims of the American Civil War, who were all amputated and shit.
Right.
And this guy's in Vienna, and he finds out about heroin. He starts shooting up heroin or morphine.
Yeah.
So Freud says, "My friend, I'm going to help you." And the guy goes, "What is it?" "Well, you're addicted to the morphine. Try this." And he shoots him up with cocaine. And the guy goes, "Oh, this is better than morphine. I quit the morphine now. Now I'm going to do the cocaine."
Problem solved.
Right, the first speedball.
No, he quit the morphine.
Right.
You moved him over.
No. Now, speedball is an interesting
How so?
trip, because what happens is you're going up and down at the same time.
Hmm.
So you're feeling pleasant, but your brain is just going, wow, because the morphine is smoothing you out,
Yeah.
Right.
and the cocaine is giving you the flash.
Sounds lovely.
I know. I did it about 3 or 4 times,
Wow.
and the 3 times I did heroin was just absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
I had to spend 4 hours on my friend's couch when I went over there to go pick up my daughter at school. I said, "Hey man, I can't. You got to go."
Mm.
His kid went to school too there. You got to go get the kids. I can't go anywhere.
You just blotted out, huh?
He was the drummer from the Mystery Train.
Okay. Far out.
And I'm going, "You call this a high? What is this shit? This is a low."
Mm.
And then, of course, they all say after 3, 4 times, then it really feels good. But
Never got there, huh?
I never got there, and it didn't feel like I wanted to go there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think like over time too, one of the things that I've seen happen is like when you first do a drug, it's like one way, but like 10 years down the road, you could do the same amount of drug, and it's such a totally different experience.
Yes, that's true.
The
You
brain
know?
The brain adapts to its presence. It's
And
become part of the
it's
brain's
just like,
emotion.
and like the things that were interesting or super cool or like blew your mind about it in the first place, like then it just becomes like almost just like, okay, like you're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
So I
It's no
had
longer novel.
So I had a trick with the coke. I would go 3 or 4 days without any.
Oh.
And then I go, "Oh yeah, I'm back."
Love it the first all over again, huh?
Right.
So
like
that's an addict using his brain to stay addicted.
Right. Like how can I quit, but I'm not quitting for quitting. I'm quitting so I can fucking
Get higher.
higher, you know?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Well-
right. So it just becomes this like constant like
Yeah,
almost
and
mind puzzle, you know?
Yeah, it's a puzzle, and you're always working on it.
And you're always working like how can I get it? Like what you know, and then like that's pretty time consuming.
And one time I had just driven back from the ranch, and I hadn't shot up for about 2 days. So I'm down in the basement apartment, and I must have put in too much. go, holy shit, I'm never doing this again.
Oh, man.
Next morning I was doing it again. Stupidity mixed with intelligence, mixed with lying, mixed with desire. I mean, it's a very complicated issue because humans are complicated and they always seek pleasure. They even find that some of these monkeys are out there looking for
Oh, yeah.
Do you think...
Dolphins and blowfish.
Do you think in a lot of ways it kind of like... It's weird, like in a lot of ways it's like you're living on the edge and you're kind of exploring and you're kind of like pushing boundaries and stuff, but in a way it's kind of like limiting in your life too, because you don't want to get too far away from your dealer, you don't want to like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
like you know, like you know, in a lot of ways it's like freedom seeking / like narrowing or something.
It can become
right,
that, absolutely.
or like in a weird way it's kind of like you're kind of like building your life in this way around something.
Yeah.
Like your decisions, even if they're not conscious, like, oh shit, I gotta go do this, but let me do this first, or I can't go do that until I do this.
Right.
Like all of a sudden, like your life is kind of just being
all about this.
Yeah, being driven a little.
Dependent on acquiring an external object, which becomes like a corner. You get into a little cul-de-sac.
Right, does it feel that way, or is it just so much a part of like the way you think that you don't even realize you're thinking that way, kind of?
Seems like it catches up with every drug user eventually, you know, over time.
You guys want to take some acid?
Yeah, let's go.
Hi, We Changed Our Mind podcast super fans. Hey, if you're interested in sharing your stories, asking your questions, or sharing your thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. As you guys know, our mission at We Changed Our Minds podcast is to minimize the risk of drug use using compassion, education, information, and of course, a lot of fun and laughs. We come from a place of non-judgment, and sometimes you just want to ask that random question or find out about things that are like confusing. We are a community, we're a family, and your voice really matters to us. Call our free 1-833-I-AM-TOO-HIGH phone number and leave us a voicemail. You can call us 24/7, leave a message, and get your questions or comments featured on our show. Call us 1-833-426-24444. Yes, it's a real phone number. And we have a great website with resources that you can even leave us a message on too. So if you want to let us know what you think, call us 1-833-I-AM-TOO-HIGH.